In the scene where Erkan anxiously tells his grandmother about his impending fatherhood, his deep internal crisis is clearly visible. He is afraid he won't be able to provide for his child. Judging by this confession, in the next episode, this fear will likely push him into extreme and reckless financial steps. When Erkan directly asks what he will leave to his heir, his despair reaches its peak. This emotional vulnerability hints that he will soon look for any, even the most questionable, ways to make quick money. Most likely, it is this weakness that will force him to risk everything he has. Erkan bitterly calls himself an eternal apprentice, and this phrase contains the seed of a future rebellion. After such words, we can safely expect that he will no longer want to stay on the sidelines. The most logical thing to expect is a harsh ultimatum to his employer in the very next episode. The feeling of his own inadequacy before his unborn child makes Erkan unstable. This reaction shows that his ambitions are starting to get out of control. It looks like we will see him try to compensate for this complex by participating in a dangerous venture to prove his worth. Halime suggests dividing the father's inheritance to help Erkan gain confidence. However, such generous gestures in these kinds of stories never go without consequences. Because of this proposal, a serious conflict will likely erupt in the next episode with the other relatives, who will feel cheated. Filiz notices her husband's fatigue and unhappiness, telling him about it directly. This attention to detail will not allow her to remain in the dark for long. After such a conversation, we can expect Filiz to start her own investigation and soon uncover Erkan's secret plans, leading to their clash. The discussion of plans to divide the property sounds encouraging, but in reality it is just preparation for a new blow. This detail hints that the process of transferring rights will drag on. The most probable move here is the intervention of a third party who will try to challenge the rights to this land through the court. The desire to keep the house as a safe haven highlights the older generation's anxiety about the future. Judging by this scene, the house could indeed become an object of dispute. It is quite likely that because of this house, the main legal battle between neighbors will unfold in the next episode. Sabri proudly declares that Kazım hired him as a security guard. This blind loyalty looks like preparation for a painful betrayal. After such a statement, it is logical to expect that Kazım will set Sabri up, and the latter, realizing he was used, will become the main witness against his employer in the new episode. The discovery that Kazım is slowly taking over their plot by planting trees shifts the hidden conflict into an open phase. Against the backdrop of such a scene, we can expect the characters to physically try to uproot these trees. This attempt to restore justice will almost certainly lead to calling the police. Seyfettin falls into a panic when he realizes his secret love letter has been found. His confusion here plays a key role. It is precisely because of this fear of exposure that he will make one mistake after another in the next episode, trying to cover his tracks and divert suspicion. To justify the letter, Seyfettin makes up a story on the fly about a football tournament. This lie is too massive to be easily hushed up. Based on this reaction, it looks like the city administration will take the tournament seriously next, and Seyfettin will have to spend real money organizing a fake event. The official announcement of the tournament, with a huge prize fund, makes turning back impossible. This scene looks like preparation for mass hysteria in the town. Most likely, we will next see how the thirst for money destroys old friendly alliances, and former pals become bitter enemies on the field. The mention of an old land sale deal without clear boundaries exposes the legal vulnerability of the characters. This detail isn't left there for nothing. This means that in the continuation, the conflict will move to officials' offices, where the characters will try to find old documents to prove their case, but will face corruption. Kazım openly and harshly threatens to grind his opponents into dust. In such series, similar threats always materialize. After such pressure, we can expect Kazım to hire local thugs or use his connections to physically block the characters' access to their own land. Erkan gives up his dream, hiding behind the fact that he will soon become a father. However, his tone betrays deep dissatisfaction with this refusal. Now the logic of the storyline leads to the fact that he won't withstand the pressure of circumstances and, secretly from his family, will still take the field to prove the opposite to himself. The mockery of the players' abilities during the team formation shows their complete unpreparedness for a serious competition. This initial chaos hints at failure. The most logical next step here is their crushing defeat at the very first training session, which will force them to look for dishonest paths to victory. The proud refusal to play on the same team with an old rival demonstrates that personal grievances are still stronger than a common goal. By the way, if you like our theories, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. After this quarrel, we can expect the characters to try and assemble two competing teams, which will only worsen the conflict. The threat to send Kazim back behind bars is thrown in the heat of anger, but it clearly hits a nerve. Because of this, Kazim will shift from defensive tactics to an aggressive attack. Most likely, in the next episode, he will try to fabricate evidence against the characters themselves to strike first. The idea of gathering a team of relatives sounds like a desperate attempt to save the situation. This scene shows that not just the game is at stake, but the honor of the family. It looks like we will next see how internal family disagreements will prevent them from training, jeopardizing their very participation in the tournament. Amir skeptically asks what good talking to a psychologist will do for him. His closed-off nature and distrust of adults are obvious. Judging by this reaction, in the new episode, he won't wait for help from the system, but will try to take the situation into his own hands by planning an escape. Amir's words that adults look at him but don't see him expose his deep resentment. This ignoring pushes him to extremes. It is quite likely that he will next stage a serious provocation or a fire in the orphanage to force the administration to finally pay attention to him. Amir's fear of being separated from his sister Sue is the main trigger for his aggression. The threat of his sister's adoption sounds very real. After this conversation, it is logical to expect that Amir will decide to kidnap his sister from the orphanage under the cover of night to prevent their separation. The boy's desperate plea not to separate him from his sister remains without a proper response from the system. The powerlessness of the administration in this scene is obvious. This means that next, the situation will spiral out of the educator's control, and outside forces, possibly the Kaya family, will have to intervene to save the children. The registration of the Zauberspor team happens with an obvious comedic undertone, but a serious rivalry hides behind it. This decision will now trigger a new conflict. Most likely, in the next episode, the registration lists will be contested, as someone will try to disqualify the team on formal grounds. The refusal to stand in goal due to an old injury shows that the team is being assembled from random and unmotivated people. This detail works as a hint at a future failure in defense. It seems that this exact reluctant goalkeeper will concede the decisive goal, which will provoke a fight within the squad. The statement that the opponents never even dreamed of victory sounds too overconfident. In drama, such bravado is always punished. Judging by this scene, in the upcoming match, this overconfident team will face a brutal and humiliating defeat that will completely break their fighting spirit. The agreement that the tournament winner takes the disputed plot of land sounds absurd, but the stakes are set. Tying real estate to the outcome of a match will leave the participants no choice. It is quite likely that the losing side will later refuse to fulfill the conditions of this verbal bet, leading to criminal turf wars. Chirichi Abdullah's worry about Karinka Baba, who has disappeared from sight, reveals his feeling of guilt. This feeling of guilt will force him to act decisively. After such a scene, we can expect Abdullah to take on obligations that will completely change his established nomadic lifestyle. The dying man's words about his fear of leaving his grandson alone sound like a direct will. This scene looks like preparation for a transfer of custody. The most probable move here is that Abdullah will have to officially adopt the boy, but he will face fierce resistance from Child Protective Services. Little Murat's tears over his sick grandfather's bed highlight his deep attachment and fear of loneliness. This reaction hints at the severe trauma of loss. Most likely, after his grandfather's death, the boy will withdraw into himself and flatly refuse to accept help from anyone, including Abdullah. Murat's statement about his readiness to go to an orphanage in the event of his grandfather's death shows his submission to fate. However, Abdullah will not allow this. Against the backdrop of such a scene, we can expect Abdullah to enter into an open conflict with state services so as not to give the child to an orphanage. The delay of Kazim's team right before the start of the match is used by him as psychological pressure. He is stalling to make his opponents nervous. This detail hints that Kazim will continue to use other dirty tricks right during the game, throwing his opponents off balance. The claim that all of Kazim's players' documents have been checked and are in order sounds unconvincing given their professional appearance. This lie will almost certainly be exposed. It looks like, in the next episode, one of the characters will conduct their own investigation and prove that the documents were fake. Kazim's mockery of his opponent's outrage demonstrates his complete confidence in his impunity. He has seized the initiative and is dictating the terms. After such a conversation, it is logical to expect that the desperate heroes will try to disrupt the match using unsportsmanlike methods, since the rules clearly don't apply to Kazim. The remark that a fight is about to start is a direct precursor to the escalation of violence on the field. Passions are running high. Judging by this reaction, in the continuation, we will see a massive brawl that will lead to police intervention and the possible cancellation of the entire tournament. Seyfettin's request to be taken to the hospital due to a dislocated shoulder shows how physically unprepared he is for the game. This injury is a consequence of his own lie about the tournament. Because of this, in the next episode, he will have to confess everything, as the hospital will demand explanations. Felice's question about the fate of their land plot exposes the growing distrust in their marriage. She realizes that Erkan risked everything for a stupid game. This detail hints that the tension between the spouses will increase, and Felice might try to resolve the land issue behind Erkan's back. The relatives' discussion of Seyfettin's heartache turns his personal drama into public family property. They took his metaphor literally. It seems the family will soon decide to cure his heart by organizing absurd and ridiculous matchmaking with a completely unsuitable girl, leading to a disaster. The ridiculous question about the girl's zodiac sign during the matchmaking shows how desperate the family is to find the cause of Seyfettin's failures. This absurd meddling in his personal life will only amplify the conflict. Most likely, this behavior will scare off the girl's family, and they will kick the matchmakers out with a scandal. The hostess's genuine lack of understanding of the reasons for the sudden visit, and equally abrupt departure, highlights the comical nature of the situation. But the consequences will be serious. After such a scene, we can expect rumors to spread around town about the Kaya family's inadequacy, heavily hitting their reputation in the new episode. Esra's excessive care in preparing a protein omelet for Jitin betrays her panicked fear for his health before the match. This overprotection looks like preparation for a nervous breakdown. It is quite likely that Esra will next try to trick Jitin into staying home by locking him in before the crucial game. The harsh push-up training under the command of an older relative shows that the stakes in the tournament have become a matter of survival. The hero's physical exhaustion is obvious. This detail hints that at a crucial moment on the field, someone will faint from fatigue, leaving the team shorthanded. The doctor's philosophical remark that defeat also happens in football sounds like an attempt to soften the impending blow. He clearly doesn't believe in the locals' victory. Judging by this scene, the local team's defeat is inevitable, and the doctor will indeed have to provide them with medical assistance after the rout. Accusing Kazim of bringing in mercenary players from the coast confirms suspicions of foul play. Now his cheating is obvious to everyone. It is most logical to expect that in the next episode, the tournament organizers, under public pressure, will initiate an official investigation and disqualify Kazim's team. The singing and dancing in the stands during the opponent's rout emphasize the humiliation of the situation. Kazim's fans are openly mocking the locals. After such public humiliation, we can expect the losing side to try to take revenge on their offenders off the football pitch by organizing an act of sabotage. The arrival of the famous scout Chagdas Atan at a provincial match fundamentally changes the balance of power. Now the game is not just for land, but for a chance to break out of the town. It looks like the players will soon start pulling the blanket over themselves, destroying teamwork for personal gain. Praise from the eminent guest regarding one of the players instantly elevates his status. This detail will not go unnoticed. Most likely, precisely because of this attention, in the next episode, the scout will offer Erkan a contract, forcing him to make a tough choice between his career and his family. The notary's clarification regarding the will confirms that Karinka Baba is transferring all rights to the underage Murat. Registering an inheritance to a child always spells trouble. It is quite likely that distant relatives will soon try to contest this will to seize the property, hiding behind a facade of caring for the boy. Abdullah's confident statement that they will not leave Murat alone binds him to his word of honor. This oath will become the main test for him. Against the backdrop of such a scene, we can expect that Abdullah will have to move into his deceased friend's house to protect the boy from Child Protective Services. The scene where the family gathers on the threshold, awaiting the mother's decision, shows their unity in the face of difficulties. However, this harmony is deceptive. Judging by the tension, the decision that will be made will split the family in two, as not everyone will agree with taking other people's children into the home. Ipek's clarification that her request does not directly concern blood relatives sets the stage for a surprising announcement about adoption. This detail hints at impending resistance. It looks like the older generation will soon categorically oppose the idea of taking an orphanage child into the family, fearing judgment from the neighbors. Talon's admission that his mother's words pointed him in the right direction demonstrates his readiness to follow his wife. But this resolve will be tested. Most likely, in the next episode, Talon will face serious financial problems when trying to implement the plan to move to Istanbul with adopted children. Reflecting on what reason would be compelling enough for moving betrays the characters' internal doubts. They are trying to justify their future departure. Because of this, we can expect their decision to leave Gödeli to be perceived by the residents as a betrayal, and many will turn their backs on them. The abrupt attempt to steer the conversation back to the match shows that the characters are not ready to openly discuss their departure. This omission will lead to an emotional explosion. The most probable move here is that the truth about the move will be revealed at the most inopportune moment, for example, right during the tournament finals. Erkan's anxious call to come closer signals that something extraordinary has happened on the field. This scene looks like preparation for bad news. It is quite likely that we will soon learn about a serious injury to a key player, jeopardizing the team's participation in the finals. The aggressive clash between players from different teams turns the match into a street fight. The tension has spiraled out of the referee's control. After such an incident, it is logical to expect that both teams will receive red cards and the tournament final will be cancelled, which will only anger Kazim even more. The desperate shouts of support before taking the field show that the team has gathered their last ounces of strength. They are ready to go all the way. Judging by this reaction, in the new episode, we will see their incredible dash for victory, which, however, will cost them immense physical exhaustion. Dedicating the goal to his unborn son becomes a moment of truth for Erkan. He has found his main motivation. However, this detail hints that his obsession with football as a means of providing for his family will blind him, and he won't notice how his marriage begins to crumble due to his lack of attention. The philosophical reflections that a person needs to know they are loved draw a line under Karinka Baba's story. This need for trust unites all the storylines. It seems that the loss of trust between loved ones will become the main driving force of conflicts in the new episode. Çağdaş Atan's admission that this provincial town taught him something important looks like a farewell. But his visit will leave a mark. Most likely, after his departure, Erkan will receive an official letter from him offering a tryout at a top-tier club. The professional praise of Erkan's technique from the scout is what he has been waiting for his whole life. This scene is a direct springboard for his ambitions. It is precisely because of this offer in the next episode that Erkan will be forced to secretly leave for the big city, abandoning his team at the most crucial moment. The voiceover reflecting on the family's role in shaping a child's feelings highlights Erkan's responsibility to his future son. This is his weak spot. Out of fear of repeating his father's mistakes, he will try to control Filiz's every step, leading to a major family scandal in the continuation. Erkan's final promise to become an insurmountable mountain for his son sounds beautiful, but conceals a danger. This oath will leave him no choice. The most logical next step here is that Erkan will get involved with Kazim's criminal structures to make quick money, justifying it by caring for his son.
Hindi na ako iyo nakalimutan. Hati-hati